Thank you so much for that introduction, Mike. I really appreciate that. So I want to say thank you for having me, and to say to welcome all of you. It is a privilege and an honor to be with you today. As he introduced, I'm a grief support services manager and community liaison for Arbor Hospice. Whether you are grieving a loss or you are a caregiver coping with the feelings of loss that begin with a diagnosis, I'm pleased that you are joining us. In the midst of loss and change, it is difficult to see or even hold on to hope. Sometimes we need to seek it in places beyond ourselves. So I'd like to begin with a reading called Borrowed Hope. And I will say on a side note that all of the things that I'm reading from, I will have a packet of handouts that I've shared with the program here, and they will make sure that that's out on their website, okay? So don't fear that if you've missed anything, you will be able to access it later. So this is called Borrowed Hope. It's written by Eloise Cole from Scottsdale, Arizona. Lend me your hope for a while. I seem to have mislaid mine. Lost and hopeless feelings accompany me daily. Pain and confusion are my companions. I know not where to turn. Looking ahead to future times does not bring forth images of renewed hope. I see mirthless times, pain-filled days, and more tragedy. Lend me your hope for a while. I seem to have misplaced mine. Hold my hand and hug me. Listen to all my ramblings. I need to unleash the pain and let it tumble out. Recovery seems so far distant. The road to healing a long and lonely one. Stand by me. Offer me your presence, your ears, and your love. Acknowledge my pain. It is so real and ever present. I'm overwhelmed with sad and confusing thoughts. Lend me your hope for a while. A time will come when I will heal, and I will lend renewed hope to others. So today, I am presenting on, as Mike had mentioned, I will be presenting on Dr. Alan Wolfelt's 6 Needs of Mourning. And he is an author and educator and grief counselor. He is a director at the Center of Loss and Life Transition, which is in Colorado. So if you ever, once you get a hold of these handouts, you're welcome to kind of visit his website and to learn more about what programs he is offering. But his motto is, if we can mourn well, we can live well and go on to love well. So first, I'd like to start with the first need of mourning, and that is acknowledging the reality of death. And he writes, you must gently confront the difficult reality that someone you love has died and that will never be physically present to you again. At times, you may push away the reality of death. This is normal. You will come to integrate the reality in doses as you are ready. I think that the keynote speaker kind of spoke on this. Lynn had mentioned, finding a balance between grief and embracing life again. And so it is important to know that in the beginning, oftentimes there's feelings of shock or numbness and almost feeling like almost a disbelief. There will be moments you move through life where you'll be thinking, you'll wake up in the middle of the night and you think, I need to check on him or I need to check on her. And you go to the room and you realize they aren't there. You might be in the grocery store and you're looking at their favorite snack and you think, oh, I should grab some of those. And then you realize that I don't need to buy that. So there's a side that, while we know that the loss has occurred in our head, it takes time for us to come to a realization and it hit our hearts. And one of the things that often happens when it hits our hearts is that, people will say, I feel so much worse than I did when I first, in the first few months, I kind of just went through the motions. And now it's just, I just can't, I'm dealing with a lot of tears. I'm dealing with a lot of distraction, a lot of irritability, all of these things that occur while we're trying to kind of process this enormous change. So acknowledging the reality of the death is where we often begin. I love this. This is a Japanese notion, or what they believe. They mend broken objects with filling the cracks with gold. The belief when something suffered damage, that it has a history and becomes more beautiful. And I do think that you know there is nothing. There is a degree that we never wish this on anyone or any person or any family or any loving relationship. But once it is occurred, and how we approach that, you know, that I do believe that there's a compassion that's born in us after a loss has occurred. We tend to kind of relate to others more deeply, especially people who have had similar losses. And so there is a beauty in that. And so, yeah. The next need of mourning is embracing the pain of the loss. And Mr. Wolfelt, or Dr. Wolfelt, writes, "It is easier to avoid, repress, or push away the pain of grief than it is to confront it. You will probably need to dose yourself in embracing your pain. If you were to allow all the pain in at once, you could not survive." And so it is very true to have, to create a balance. Uh, I think that sometimes, we hear that embracing the pain. Okay. And, as when we were younger, perhaps we'd watch our father or our mother preparing a meal, and the stove is going and we're curious what's going on there. And our parent looks down at us and says, "Don't touch the stove because that's going to hurt." And out of curiosity, we explore and we find out, oh gosh, that really hurt. I don't want to do that again. We learn very quickly to shy away from pain, to not put ourselves in a place of pain or hurt. But with emotional pain, with the pain of a loss, it is very different. There is a lot of importance. We must go towards our grief, for that is where we begin to heal. Um, and and that's not our natural reaction. Our natural kind of approach to this is kind of want to avoid it at all costs. And but just like that proverbial rug, if we should continue to push things under the carpet, eventually it will rear its ugly head, and grief will surface in places where it's not expected, or in places that we're not actually feeling ready for it. Perhaps if you are a professional and you work and you think you're experiencing moments where you have to take yourself to the bathroom to cry, that's probably in not always the case, but a situation of not allowing for enough time for yourself to grieve. I think there is something to making time for yourself and making time for that grief. I I love, this is a quote by Christopher Reeve, and I don't know if you all know who Christopher Reeve. Some of you will probably nod your head and say yes. He was Superman. He was the I think first actor to play him in a motion picture film, and he was good looking, dashing, and a strong presence, physically fit, and he was an equestrian too, which meant that he rode horses, and he was thrown off a horse, which caused him to be paraplegic. And I have a quote by him, and I think it's just very profound, knowing from the space from where he's coming from, or his experience. And then that is, he says, "Once you choose hope, anything is possible." And so there is a side that having that belief that we can heal, and that belief that we can come to a place of hope and life again, it starts with us in that belief, and that choice. So, all right. And then now that with the third need of mourning is remembering the person who has died. And Alan Wolfelt writes, when someone loved dies, the person lives on in us through memory. To heal, you need to be active, to actively remember the person who has died and commemorate the life that has lived. It is incredibly important to validate that loss by acknowledging that they existed, and they existed and made us better people. You know, calling back to Lynn's presentation, she said that there were so many things that her daughter had taught her about about life and how to approach things, and to approach it with a bit of grit and moxie, as she said. And that remembering the person who has died, I want to acknowledge is not always easy. I often say that some folks, they they find themselves comforted by having lots of photographs out, pictures that are constant reminders. There are others that need to put the pictures away for a time, that they need to get past the place of being so raw from the loss. And one is not right, one is not wrong. It's just that we all have a different approach to this, and we have a different way of comforting ourselves. And so, yes, remembering the person who died and remembering your child is incredibly important. One of the things that is not just through pictures, but it's through storytelling. I had a client once who would share a story of her son who had a rare disease, and he was total care. So she provided all of his care. And after he had died, one of the things that she struggled with was that not everybody wanted to talk about it, that it was hard because she felt very alone in her grief, because you know, uh, people were maybe fearful of bringing it up because they didn't want to cause her any pain or angst, or to cry. But she mentioned, but it's still real for me, and I still want to talk about him. I still want to hold his memory. And some of the things that she would share is that some of her favorite memories of him were he loved to take rides, and she loved to share that. That when she'd say to him, we're going to go for a ride, he would just bounce and bounce and bounce, and she would get him into his car seat and into situated, and he found such joy in that. He would make such, she said, he would squeal, and he would make such happy noises, and he would just have this big, huge grin on his face. And she said, not only because it was a ride, but because he loved chocolate shakes. So chocolate shakes, who doesn't love chocolate shakes, right? Okay, so these are examples of how powerful memories can be. Telling stories really illustrate our love for them, and how their light and their love in their own special way, what they brought to us. So memories it validates their existence. It validates their existence. So the other thing that I want to mention about memories is I remember once someone saying to me that they enjoy telling stories and sharing memories because it feels like a warm blanket, like a quilted warm blanket, like they've quilted each of these stories together that illustrate a life of love. And being able to share those stories feels like a warm embrace, or a way of connecting. So I love that, and wanted to share that. The next need of mourning is developing a new self-identity. That's the need number 4. So Dr. Wolfelt says, part of your self-identity was formed by the relationship you had with the person who has died, the way you defined yourself, and the way society defined you has changed. So there are these questions after losing, you know, anyone, whether it be a child, whether it be a sibling, whether it be a parent or a spouse. There we all carry roles in this life, you know whether we ourselves are parents or whether we are you know uh, a parent or a child. We all carry roles, and there is, after a loss and a significant change of loss, the question of who am I now? you know who am I now? What does the world hold for me? What are my hopes and dreams now? We so often with our children have our hopes and dreams wrapped up into them, dreams of the future, and it kind of puts us in a place of I don't understand this. Where am I going from here? And so how do I begin to embrace life again? This developing a new self-identity, I will say that uh, it's a gradual thing. It's not something that we wake up in the morning and we say, okay, this is me, the new me, and I'm like, here I am. And it's more of a gradual change, and who we are um, is forever changed. Death forever changes us. Uh, However, the love that we have for them, we can continue to carry on in legacy and lessons learned into our future and into the relationships we develop, and into the relationships we continue to enrich. So yeah, I'll use the example of after a loss, as we're trying to search for our new identity and who am I now in the wake of all of this. It's not like a flip of a switch. It's more of a slow turn of a dial, and there is a side that you are um, assimilating to a new life. It's it's discovering now, who am I after all of this has occurred. And of course, everything within the realm of grief takes an inordinate amount of patience with yourself and patience with the people around you, because by and large, we are not islands. We have family, and we have other children, and we have spouses, and maybe we have the support of grandparents, or close family friends, and everyone is grieving. And so there is a side of uh, we're also playing with that. Where do we fall in with all of that, and how do we help ourselves? How do I help myself first, and then help others? And so it's a long process for which you need to be gentle with yourself. There's a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it goes, "When it's dark enough, you can see the stars." And that there is a side that even in our darkest moments, we can find hope. We can find that light that we may not be able to see in the moment. One of the analogies I think is beautiful, that I just provided a support group, and in that 6-week series, one of the gentlemen in that group shared, it's like entering a tunnel, and it's a tunnel that's dark, and I don't know what's on the other side. And he says, I just have to have faith that there's light at the end of that tunnel, and that there will be another side. And I thought that was a beautiful analogy. There's so many lessons to be learned from people. There really is. And I think that's, a perfect example of a metaphor that just, I think, makes a lot of sense when you're grieving. The next need is a searching for meaning. When a loved one dies, we naturally question the meaning and purpose of life and death. Why questions may surface uncontrollably and often precede how questions, and why did this happen come before how will I go on living? The question, Why? Why me? Why now? Why in this time? Why in this way? These are all important questions to ask. Do we have these moments where we have the clouds part and we hear the answers come forth? No, no, we find it over time, and sometimes meaning is developed. Some examples I have, you know, searching for meaning might be, uh, the whys and how did they happen, but also I don't want anyone else to suffer in the way that I have suffered. So how can I make the world a better place? Whether it be, I feel like I'm creating meaning by raising or doing something towards a charity that that my child had suffered from. Maybe it's another example I often use in this searching for meaning need is, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. That all became from a woman who wanted to make meaning. Like, I don't want my child's death to be meaningless, and that we didn't learn anything from this. So she created this whole campaign, and now, that right before big seasons of, like, I know that right now we aren't doing proms and gatherings like we might have remembered from our childhood, but certainly, that's educating young people to be responsible, and to maybe having people just keeping an eye on the young people when they're together at a social event, just to make sure that they aren't, that they're safe. And that all came from the heart of a heart of a mother who understood loss and didn't want anyone else to suffer from that. And so those are just maybe a couple examples of how are finding meaning. Now, I also want to talk about meaning tends to often kind of reflect spirituality, and I want to explain spirituality in the realm of faith and not religion. Religion might be a way that you hone, or um, a way that you practice your faith, but we may not all be religious, but we all are spiritual. And so it's like the order, how we order our lives, or how we order the universe, or how and why things work. This is That search is profound, and sometimes there are deep thoughts and deep questions and deep um, wonderment of what is next, and where is my child, and what's all of those questions. And those are important to explore, and to know that you're not alone in those thoughts and feelings and questions, and finding safe people to kind of explore that with is incredibly important. I will share a quote, and this is a quote from an author and motivational speaker. Her name is Judy Squire, and she was born without complete legs and hand. And so she, obviously, a motivational speaker, talks about, what that has been like for her, to live a life like that. And one of her quotes is, "What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the creator calls a butterfly." As humanity, we seek only the imperfect underside of God's tapestry in our lives. What we judge to be tragic, the most dreaded thing that could happen, I expect we will one day see as the awesome reason for the beauty and uniqueness of our life. So the sixth need is receiving ongoing support from others. As mourners, we need the love and understanding of others if we are to heal. Grief is a process, not an event. Again, that's grief is a process, not an event. And you will need the continued support of friends and family for weeks, months, and years. So Yes, I think that I I feel that there's a promise in you, and I tell you why I think there's a promise in you, is the fact that you're here today and you've joined us today says that you are able to seek support, because you've availed yourself of this program. But also, to know that there are resources out there, everything from, what Arbor Hospice provides, or other hospice programs, or as, Lynn had shared, there's the Grief Share, all of these places where you will find other people who are walking a walk of hurt and looking and searching for healing. There's a lot of power in that. And it also provides opportunities. We talked about embracing the pain, that second need. There's nothing more powerful than having a group of others who are coping, to be able to share your feelings, to share your innermost thoughts, because we tend to walk around sometimes just protecting sometimes ourselves from our dark feelings, and sometimes others from those feelings of sadness. And to find a safe place, I encourage you to do so, wherever that might be, whether it be with this North Star outreach, or with a hospice, or other organizations that provide that follow-up and grief and loss component. I am going to finish with another poem. Also, that'll be in the packet that's online. And then I'm going to open it up for questions. This poem is also called Hope, and it's by Katrina Gainey. One must hold on to hope. Without it, reasons for living become very few. One must hold on to hope, even when the days are darkest, the hours the longest, when the heart aches the heaviest, and promises that were never made never come true. One must hold on to hope, for without it, there would be no need to find faith in the midst of a situation that is devastating. We would not want to get out of bed in the morning or dream of loving. No, one must always hope. Sometimes that's the only thing that keeps us alive. I thank you. I want to open it up to any thoughts or questions or comments.
Yeah, that's great. We have about 10-ish more minutes. We're gonna
Okay.
go to 1:45 because we ran over at the beginning, and we'll officially wrap up around 1:50. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, show off your camera, or you can type in the chat, and whatever you're feeling most comfortable with. But yeah, feel free to ask any questions.
Okay. Well, I can certainly, expound upon some of these, and I apologize. I thought that I was supposed to be done at 1:30, or 1:40, so to add for questions. But
No, you're good. It was just recently came in, so it's a new device.
that I see. Okay, so I have another quote, and this is from Carrie Landry, and it um, it was a saying that was found etched into the side of a wooden sleeping platform in one of the German concentration camps in World War II. And it was later put to music. It says, "I believe in the sun, even when it isn't shining. I believe in love, even when there is no one there. And I believe in God, even when he is silent." And that is also that under that searching for meaning of those questions of why. There's often um, that place of not understanding why certain things happen, and so certainly I think that uh, you know seeing the words that we know, someone who was suffering greatly, and probably dealing with a lot of fear, to know that, you know, that that strong, you can't deny people of their faith, that people still will have it no matter what. Um, uh, it looks like maybe have we got some questions now? Oh, lend me a hope for a while. I see. Thank you for that, Anya. Yes, I think that sometimes we are in a place of vulnerability and a place where we need others to reach out to and to know that they have our back, that they can. I often think of our support systems sometimes being our pillars, and that's hard when it's a family system and more of us are wounded from the loss. But certainly, finding others who can kind of offer that ability to know that hope is there, and that one day maybe you'll be the lens of the future of people who come and can offer your story as a story of healing and to hold other people up. Yeah. Yes, yes. I love that Sandy just you know mentioned the pandemic, and I think that maybe that's something else we should address, is that one of the things about the pandemic is that it has created that we're not just grieving a loss, but we're grieving all of the things that would have come from that, from a support, like a funeral. I know that I don't know some of you. I don't know where you are in the trajectory of your loss, but for many of the people that I talk to, some of them have had to forego funerals and forego even saying their goodbyes to their loved one, um, and and that has a profound effect on your healing and our ability to connect with one another. And so, how beautiful it is that we have the ability to have technology like this to be able to connect. But I want to acknowledge that you're not only dealing with a loss. Of a precious child, but you're also dealing and coping with a pandemic, which limits our ability to maybe access the things traditionally. We need hugs, don't we? We need hugs. We need people to be able to show their love and care, and that's been really challenging. That's really been challenging. But I also think there's hope there too. I'm hoping that in time those numbers will drop and that we will begin to resume the things that we once did to connect with one another. Uh, so thank you for bringing up, you know, uh, that we're also coping with the pandemic and the losses that go with that. Um, so, uh, is there?
I have a question actually.
Yes, absolutely, Mike.
So when it comes to like this topic and then grief and then just trying to get yourself in a place where you can even have hope or even find that, like, do you have any thoughts or ways that people, when it feels like there's nothing, there's no way even start to even find a way to find hope, like how you can kind of start turning that around to find that, and whether it's in other people or in other things, but just how do you find hope in a sense?
Yeah. Well, I think that initially it's kind of hard. I think the poem that I opened with really kind of touches on that. That sometimes you won't have it, and that you will need to lean on others in order to have that, and to remind you that there is hope. And I think that the other thing is that providing yourself, like that sixth need of mourning, of providing yourself with opportunities to connect with others, allows us to. Sometimes it is seeing other people coming to the other side of their grief and beginning to embrace life again, and when we see that, we know. in essence, there's hope for us. And I do think, and I want to acknowledge that there are moments that it is very dark, and there are moments that, um, I've had people say things like, "How do I go on living? How do I go on living?" And those are, I often say, I love that authenticity, and I thank them for being real and expressing those, that feeling, and sometimes it touches on people, that when it gets really dark, sometimes we think, uh, um, of ending the hurt, and people have suicidal ideation, and I often say it's one thing to have the thoughts. I think it's normal to have those thoughts. It's yet another, and it's quite concerning, if you have some sort of plan of action, and if you do, and then that's when you need to call out for help. And there are people out here. There are people willing to lend a hand, to offer to hear you, and to companion you, and to listen, and to just hold a space for you to be able to talk about the hurt. And yeah, and you're right, Mike, that sometimes, like that, the analogy of the tunnel, maybe you're walking into this place of darkness and you can't see the exit, or how you got into this dark place. And it's sometimes you just keep walking, and having this faith that, if I keep moving forward, eventually I'll come to the other place. And I've seen some tremendous, and I've witnessed some amazing stories of people who've come to a place of healing. Um, and so many lessons have been learned along the way from those folks. And I do believe, that if you can avail yourself to others, that's, and lean on others. And sometimes it's hard. We live in a society that, we're very independent, and we think, oh gosh, I don't want to burden anybody. I've had people say to me, I feel like I've saturated my friends and family with my story, and that they aren't able to hear me anymore. Find people who can. Find people who can and will be willing to hear your story, and that might be in a support group. That might be with, a pastor. That might be with, or somebody who's walked through this walk. You know, but absolutely. I don't want you to give up on hope. I want you to believe that there is, another side to this, and there is a place of healing, and that life, it won't ever be the same, but there will be a day that you can find joy again, uh, even though right now it might elude you. So, mm, uh, thank you, Gabe. I saw your comment too. Um, it's, yeah, my privilege to talk with you. Yes, absolutely, Sandy. Life can be beautiful. It can be, and oh. So, are there any last thoughts or questions, as we're coming to the close of our last 5 minutes here, and uh, so. Well, I thank you so much, for all of you. And for, you know for coming today. Again, I will say that I believe that, your being here is a step towards, healing, and availing yourself to this type of programming, and to other, programs that are out there, that I hope in time that you find, a way to kind of, be able to embrace that hope, and, to live life again. So, oh.
Yes, thank you so much, Margie, for being here and partaking and giving this conversation. At camp, we do a series of claps to acknowledge and celebrate people. So what I'm going to do is the round of applause. So a round
Oh,
of applause for you, and for giving this beautiful talk, and just so grateful for the the conversation that you're able to share with us. A few quick things for everyone out in the Zoom sphere. We have a survey that we'll be sending out after the conference. This is our first time doing it, so would love any feedback that you have about the experience, things that we can learn and be better at and improve for the next time we are able to gather and have this conversation. Thank you all again for being a part of this and being here. You will have the ability to go back into the main room and get a chance to stretch your legs, take a break, think, reflect back on the conversations that have already been discussed. This is a heavy topic, and so we wanted to create that space for you to be able to reflect on it, to process it, and then come back fully energized, or as energized as you can be for the next round of conversations that will start at 2:00. So you're more than welcome to go back into the breakout room to hang around for more questions. But thank you all once again for being a part of this and to, taking the chance and choosing to have this conversation, which is really important.
Mhm. Thank you again, Mike, for this privilege and for creating you and your group at North Star for doing such an amazing job to bring these folks together. This is wonderful.